Record. Okay. Welcome everybody to this final workshop of the Elevate program. And we're going to have a look at MakeCode Arcade, which is a visual game development engine that works on any device, including smartphones, made by Microsoft. In the presentation, which you can find by accessing the elevate.gameanglia.co.uk website, I've posted a bunch of links, including to the YouTube channel of the MakeCode Arcade community, and also a link to their Twitch. What you'll find on these channels are some very useful tutorials as well as how-tos that go a lot more in depth than I am going to go this evening. And here you can find a lot of really interesting resources as well as questions, as well as answers to questions that you may have. You also have a link to the actual MakeCode Arcade engine, which we're going to go into in a second, and the kit itself, which is the game that we're going to be making tonight. So to begin with, we're going to explore making a short narrative game in MakeCode Arcade. The really interesting thing is that anybody can derive their own game from this project, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. First off, we need to start out with a plan. So this game is going to have 4 main pillars to it that we're going to track throughout tonight's workshop. The first one is controls. I've decided, and you may decide differently, that the player will be able to move in every direction in a top-down perspective. They're going to be able to interact with other characters and objects, and they're going to learn about the world around them from narrative prompts, as well as be able to answer a question that a character is going to pose to them. And lastly, the win condition is going to rescue a lost kitty. Why a lost kitty? Because I like cats. We are going to be looking at the desktop version of this, mainly because I couldn't figure out how to cast my phone. However, keep in mind that you can follow these instructions on any device, including on your tablets and smartphones. MakeCode Arcade is fully functional using touchscreen controls. The first thing that you're going to want to do if you want to have a look at the kit is to use the import URL or import file function. The URL is this, and the file can be found in the tutorial folder as an image. So here we have the kit itself. This is what you're going to see when you go into the kit bit of the website for MakeCode Arcade, and you can just download this image and then go into the engine, press import file, and then drag this here. And it's going to load the project. And that's it. That's all you need to do. It works the same if you have a URL. Now, let's have a quick look at the game itself to see what we're going to be making. Keep in mind that all of the sprites that I've used, all of the graphics, are available as part of the default gallery of MakeCode Arcade. So I haven't personally drawn any pixel art. It's up to you if you want to draw some. It doesn't make your submission for the story jam less valid. Keep in mind that you're going to be scored based on the narrative aspect of your game, not necessarily on how well it looks. So let's play the game. Once upon a time, all the heroes went east on sagas. Still, someone was needed by the people of this village. One of the villagers stood up to the call. Interact with the B button, and you navigate prompts with A. I'm going to be using the WASD buttons to move around, and the key bindings for A and B are enter and space, respectively. Sorry, space is A, B is enter. I reached this villager. Now I'm going to interact with them. My kitty was lost. Can you bring her back, please? Okay, let's go and see if the kitty is in the bush. Oh, the kitty won't come out unless you have cat treats. Oh, that's perfectly understandable. Right. Now, due to lore that I will go into a second, I know that the cat treats are in that chest over there, that conspicuous chest. So I'm going to talk to this villager, whose name is Dora. What color is my hair? I believe that your color is, the color of your hair is black. You may pass. And we see that the villager moved. Now let's go here. Come on, you can do it, hero. You can do it. I wonder if I forgot to do something in the code. Let's see. Let's have a quick look at the tile map that is there. Okay, and then when we answer, there we go. I think this was the issue here. Let's see if that solved it. Come on, don't break. Ah, no, that was my bad. This was here, and then Dora is here. This was the bit that needed changing. There we go. You now have the cat treats. Go find the kitty. No kitty in this bush. No kitty in this bush. You found the kitty. Time to reunite it with the owner. And there she is, following us. Thank you for finding my kitty. You're the real hero. And I don't know if you listened, if that sound came through, but you win. And that's the game. That's the game that we're going to be making using this kit. And this is how the actual interface looks like. As I said before, this took me about a day to put together using the blocks that are here. So now, if we go back home and create a new project, demonstration 18 Feb, this is how you start off in MakeCode Arcade. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it step by step and recreate bits of the game. You can find the full tutorial in the PowerPoint presentation, in the slides presentation that I shared. So first off, I just want to go over the basics. Here, you can find, let me just zoom out a little bit. Here you can find blocks that you can drag into your project, and they are categorized in various categories of blocks: sprites, controllers, game, music, scene, info, loops, logic, variables, math, and you also have advanced categories such as animation, which we are going to be using, and functions, which we use. You don't need to use animations or functions. I just use them because they were easier for me to use, as well as text. And this is a string variable here. They do various things, and we're going to go into a few of them in a second. I also want to bring attention to the assets section, assets tab of MakeCode Arcade, where you have your own assets here. So you can create a new asset, such as an image, that's a sprite, a tile, that's the bit that you're walking on, a tile map, which is the level editor, more or less, and an animation. And you also have a gallery of various sprites. You can see here, if I scroll down enough, this is the hero that I used in their various poses. You can see the kitty here. And then if I scroll down enough, other than the Derek and Dora who are there, you can actually see the tiles themselves that I used in order to create the map. So these are the forest tiles, and these are the dungeon tiles, as well as the, where is it? As well as the chest. There it is. And then if you scroll even further, you can see that some of the sprites are animated, and you can hover over them in order to see the animation. Right. Let's move back to blocks and begin. So to begin with, what we want to do is create our hero. So from sprites, we're going to rename. You can set variables from here. as well as adding them from here by using the make a variable button. So we're going to rename our hero to the name hero, and then here we're going to give it an image. Again, what I did was I went into gallery and I selected this character, and then I pressed done. Of kind player, that means that we can then we can then do a bunch of things by using this class or kind. And now we can see here in this live preview that our hero has appeared there. Now what we want to do is to be able to move the hero using buttons. So all we need to do is drag that block in, press move hero with buttons, and then if you wanted, you can also change their speed here by pressing this plus. Now, if we press play, we can actually move the hero, right? And on mobile, this is what you would be doing, which is really great. But this looks a bit dull, so let's change the background color to something nicer. And to do that, we just need to go to scene. I just have the tutorial here, so you can follow along if you want to. Set the background color to say green, and then we're going to add a tile map, which is basically how we want our level to look like. Now, let's go in the tile map and see exactly how this looks. So the tile map itself is just a bunch of tiles which are 16 by 16, and you can change the size of the tile map if you want to make it wider or to make it longer. That's perfectly fine. So let's quickly take these tiles and draw a level that's very foresty. Here you have different types of tools. This is the pencil tool that I just used. It allows you to click and place tiles. This is the eraser, which allows you to erase something. Then you have a rectangle tool, which allows you to draw rectangles. Some of them might look weird. You have the circle tool, which allows you to draw pixel art like circles. Then you have a line tool, which I'm going to be using here. A selection tool. So for example, if I wanted to select these tiles and copy them, I just press Ctrl+C now. Sorry, if I wanted to select these tiles and move them, I would do this. If I wanted to copy them, there's a duplicate function. And then this is the hand move tool, which allows you to move the scene around should you have a scene that's wider than your canvas. We're going to go into this tool, which is very useful. That's the wall tool in a second. Now, for now, let's finish drawing our level. I'm just going to undo there. Oh, it doesn't draw a straight line because I was in the pencil tool. There we go. And here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use the fill tool to fill the rest of the canvas. I will then use the rectangle to draw a few bits of grass. Maybe add some flowers, and then I'm going to draw a little lake here and a little lake here that I'm then going to fill using the fill tool. And now the level looks much better. Wait for it to update. Press play, and there you go. Our hero is here. But they can easily go way, way out of the canvas. So what we want to do next is add a feature that tells the camera to follow the player. You can do that by going here and then selecting camera, follow my sprite, and you can change this to follow the hero. Now if I press play, you can see that the camera is always going to follow the hero. And they're going to keep them in the center of the screen unless you run out of screen in one direction. Right. What would we want to do next? Well, since this is another narrative adventure, let's add some text. You can do that, which would be expository text. So in this case, we're going to tell the player that they are supposed to be the hero of the story. Welcome to a land. Just drag that in and type. Welcome to a land that has been forgotten by time. You are its last hero. In this land, there is one lost kitty that you need to find. Venture forth. Interact with the B button. The reason why I keep emphasizing the fact that you need to interact with the B button is because you need to give the player instructions, and this is kind of the only place where you can do this using text prompts. So I press play, and this has now appeared. Okay, moving on. What we're going to do next is to give the player a task. So we're going to create our quest giver, which is similarly simple. What we need to do is give the quest giver a variable, a kind, and a sprite. So let's create a new variable called Derek. Just call him whatever you want, and then add a new kind, which would be quest giver. You're going to see in a second why this is very important, because then we can check when our player is interacting, is close to the quest giver. And let's give them a, gallery. Let's give them a sprite. I think this was their sprite. No, sorry, that's a moving sprite. This was their sprite. Right. So now, as opposed to our player, we're actually going to place Derek in the world, because otherwise it's just going to spawn on top of the player. The way that placing works is that you can either you can either place a sprite at a certain location or on top of a certain other sprite. So what we're going to do is we're going to place Derek on a special tile. So if we go back into the tile map and select, say, miscellaneous, we can choose, let's say, this tree. Not this tree. That would be a bit mean, wouldn't it? Let's go back to forest. Let's choose dungeon. Sorry about that. Let's choose the special warp-like tile and place it here. And then let's place Derek on top of that tile. Any questions that you might have, do let me know. Where is it? Place my sprite on top of random. This is the one that I was looking at. So after we've set Derek to that sprite, after we've set the tile map, you need to remember that all of this executes from top to bottom. So for example, if I were to move this here, it would error because it wouldn't know, or rather it wouldn't execute because it wouldn't know what the tile looks like, because you can only you only set the tile map here. The way that I'm doing this, by the way, only taking out one of the blocks, is I'm holding the control button. So let's place Derek on top of a random that type of tile, and now we see that he moved on that tile, as you can see here at the top of the live preview. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to program an interaction. So the next part is a bit more complex. So please do let me know if you have any questions. Let me see if I can get the Q&A. There we go. Does the player class is part of the MakeCode Arcade or part of the toolkit? It's part of MakeCode Arcade when you start. So what I started here with is the basic bit of MakeCode Arcade, just starting from scratch. The kit is just the game that you can then fork. So these classes are pre-written: player, projectile, food, enemy, and then I created quest giver. They don't come with any specific, no, they're basically like tags. They don't actually do anything much. Like if something is a projectile, it's not going to start moving on its own. You still need to program that. Bogdan asked if classes actually do something, or they're basically like tags. Okay. Um, right. I'll get into the other question about scoring in a bit, towards the end. Right. Going back. So now we're going to interact to program the actual interaction. What we need is this overlaps block here on sprite of kind 1 overlaps sprite of kind other, something happens. So let's drag this here. This is going to be outside of our main loop that happens on start. And this is checked at all times, by the way. So first, we're going to see, okay, our player interacts with who? They interact with the quest giver. So what happens if they interact with the quest giver? Well, we want to check, to program an actual interaction. If we don't tell the player, well, interact when you press B, only interact when you overlap and then show a dialogue, then something that's not quite nice is going to happen, and I'll show you in a second. So let's use this splash, for example, which is another type of saying a text. And let's just write hello, press play. Right, remember that at the moment, the interaction happens whenever they overlap. You get this hello, 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 until you move outside. So that's why we're going to program it so that it only appears when you press the B button. What we're going to need to do is grab an if bit from the condition, from the logic, an if block from the logic category, and move this here. But since true is also true, is always true, we need to actually check if the B button is pressed. The way that this works was I grabbed if button pressed from, if button pressed from the controller, pop that there, and then change this to B. So now, press play, move here, nothing happens until we press the B button and they say hello. Right. Now we can change this into a show long text because I really like the way that the text looks at the bottom. You can also search this. So if I search for long, it's going to appear with show long text at bottom. We can change this to be anywhere or even be full screen. And we can say, I lost my kitty. My kitty really likes treats and hiding in bushes. Can you find her, please? Again, game design, I told the player what they need to know. The cat likes hiding in bushes and they like treats. So we're going to reinforce that once we get to the point where the player needs to look for the cat. So what we're going to do next is similar to this. So we're going to add some bushes on the map and then find the kitty once the player interacts with those bushes. We go back to the tile map. If we go to forest, if we go to miscellaneous, yes, miscellaneous, we're just going to place a few bushes here and there. And now we're going to look for a different type of overlaps, which is on sprite. It's based on scene, and it checks if a sprite is interacting with a tile. So if sprite of kind player overlaps with bush, we just copy this, right click, duplicate. If B button is pressed, where are we? Sorry about that. Show long text. Kitty is not in this bush. So let's check and see if that works. Yeah, this seems to work. So now we have some bushes, but we want the cat to appear randomly in one of the bushes. So the way that we're going to do that is a bit cheeky. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a sprite, not a tile, that looks exactly like this tile, and then we're going to put the bush sprite and the bush with cat sprite on top of the normal bush. So if we go into assets, gallery, and this is where I was talking about that duplicate feature. We're going to find the bush, press copy, and then if we go into new asset, image this time around, and paste it, Control V, we got a sprite. A sprite that's not a tile. So what we're going to need to do now is create a sprite, just like we did with Derek and the hero. Only this one we're going to call bush with kitty in it. And select the sprite from here. And of kind bush with kitty. And we're going to place it on a random normal bush. So let's just duplicate this, put it here, bush with kitty in it, set on top of random bush. Right. So if give me a sec, I just need to check my notes here. Yeah. So what we want is here to check if the player overlaps with the bush with the kitty in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to call to create what's called a nested if, and we're going to walk through that in a second. That's going to say, if you drag this, by the way, you can delete things here. So if we have a look at the sprites interaction bit in overlaps here, we see that this is also a condition that can be true or false. If my sprite overlaps with other sprites. So if we drag this here, we can change this to if hero overlaps with bush with kitty in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this out, pop this in, and say else. Where's the else? Sorry, else needs to be here. You found the kitty. So if you're overlapping a bush and you press the B button, if you're overlapping with the bush with the kitty in it, then show that you found the kitty. Otherwise, show that the kitty is not in that bush. So let's try that. Not in this bush, not in this bush, not in this bush. What were the odds that it was in the last bush? So you found the kitty, yay. What we need to do next is to actually show that the player has found the kitty. And to do that, we're going to create a simple variable, which is called player has the kitty. And that's going to be set to 0. And then once the player has found the kitty here, we're going to change it by 1. So we are going to know that the player has the kitty. The reason why we do that is because because at the moment, Derek doesn't know if the player has found the cat or not. So what we're going to do is create an AND. So if the B button is pressed and actually, no, it's still going to be a nested if. If the B button is pressed, if the player has the cat, then we're going to win the game. If the player doesn't have the cat, just say, I've lost my kitty. My kitty really likes treats. Where is that? If here. That becomes an else. So if variables, sorry, I actually need a comparison. So if player has kitty is greater than 0, it means the player has found the kitty. Just show a long text. Thank you for finding my kitty, and win the game. So I went here and I searched win, game over, win. So let's see if that actually works. I lost my kitty. She really likes treats. You found the kitty. Okay, it was really nice the first time around. Thank you for finding my kitty. And you win. So that's the base. That's the base of what you can do. Everything else I mentioned, from animations all the way through to adding a quiz and adding a cat that moves with you and sounds and everything else you can find in the tutorial. I just thought it would be interesting to actually go through a couple more things that stumped me while I was learning this. Um, the first one was that if you want to create a variable that is a text, because it doesn't, sorry, if you want to create a variable that is a text, what you're going to need to do, say, for example, when we want to create the answer to the quiz, make a variable here, quiz answer, set quiz answer to, what would that be? If I am to write here, say blonde, it doesn't work. So what I need to do is turn that into a string variable by grabbing this string here and putting it there. So that's under advanced text, the first bit. And then I can write blonde, and that's going to work. So that stumped me for a bit, and I hope that this is going to work easier for you because I showed you that. You can also play a lot with sounds and music as well as with melodies. I do believe you can compose your own stuff as well, set the tempo, set the volume. There are some really interesting things in game. So as I showed you, you have splash and show long text at the bottom or wherever, but you can also change the dialogue color, change the dialogue cursor, and change the dialogue frame if you wanted to make it look a lot more like an anime style RPG. RPG. And generally, if you wanted to create loops such as for loops, you can do this here. So for index 0 to 4, for element value of list, we actually do this in the kit, having a look at each of the, what were we having a look at there? Let's see, give me 1 sec. If we go back home, demonstration. So in the kit, we actually have a look at, oh yeah, there it is. So here we have a look at all of the tiles that look like this and turn the walls off. So as I mentioned before, walls have a pretty major role. Here, everything that you see in red is a wall, so the player can't walk through it. However, what we do is after you talk to an NPC, we turn this wall off. And here, after you answer Dora's question correctly, we turn this wall, and this wall off so that the player can more easily access the actual chest with the treat. And another thing that we do there is in the chest itself. So once the player overlaps and opens the chest by pressing the B button, you show the long text cat treat was found, you increase the cat treat boolean, and then you set, and then you change the, well, you don't actually change it, you just add the sprite of the open chest at the location of the chest. And the way that we did this was that we dragged this location here. So these are all draggable bits. And then this was the other thing that I was talking about, where you can create functions, and I just created the function called initialize texts because I wanted to have all the text in one place. And then I called that function here. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and have a look at your questions. Actually, no, I'll keep sharing my screen. That's okay. I'm just going to move this somewhere where it's relatively blank so you don't get distracted. But yeah, that's it. There's a lot more in the actual kit if you want to have a look at and play with it. And you can always, as I mentioned, fork that. So once you finish the project, you can either save an image, which is going to actually contain all of the code to create the story, which I find absolutely amazing, to create the project, which I find absolutely amazing. Additionally, you can press share and publish project, and you're going to get either a QR code that you can share, that you can scan from your phone, or a code that you can share. What we're going to want for the actual story jam is for you to upload the image so that we can then download it and play. And now let's go to questions. So Bogdan asks, why would I use if the player has kitty is bigger than 0 instead of a boolean? That's because, as far as I know, variables, you can't create variable types. It's similar, I want to say, with JavaScript. So you have a variable, but you're not going to actually say this is a boolean, this is a long int, this is a string. You need to play around with that. Yeah, exactly. There are no actual booleans. When I say you can compose your own music, do I mean within MakeCode Arcade itself? Yeah. So if I'm going to grab this, I can actually create music here and then increase that to, say, a tempo of 600. So yeah, and there's also a gallery that you can play around with. So you can play around with all of this. Let me just drag this here. Yeah, I absolutely love this because it's, as I said, it's quite accessible and it's free. And as far as I know, you keep ownership of everything that you make. And if you want to show like a little brother or your parents that you've made something cool, it's really easy to share that with them, right? You have a controller here, you have buttons here, and yeah, it's quite easy to use. Delano asks, can you add animation to the background? That's a very good question, Delano. Let me see. So if we have a look at the tile map, and then the tiles themselves, if we want to create a new, you can probably hack your way around it. So this is how the tile creator looks like. And this is how the animation editor looks like. So if I go assets, new asset animation, I now have this timeline here where, say, I draw, just going to pretend that this is a heart, and then I do plus. I can, where was it? There was a special, sorry, let's copy that into a new frame, and then let's just add some red here, delete this frame, and now I can play the animation, and you can see it play here at 200, right? At 200 milliseconds, I want to say. So let's just call that heart animation, and let's see if we can add it to the background. Back to blocks, set tile map to my tiles. Yeah, that doesn't appear here. However, what you can do if you wanted to change it is do something do exactly what we did with the kitty with the bush in it, and say that you wanted, where is it? So this is how the animation looks like. You would need to create a sprite and then place that sprite. So we can animate my sprite with my assets. Grab this animation and say animate background text. I just created a new variable for that. And what we would want to do is set, after we set the tile map, well, no, actually this would be before, set, we called it background test. text to sprite. We don't really care that much. Just give it an empty sprite of kind background text. And then after the tile map, we would place the background text on top of a random, let's say, one of these things so we can actually see it. And then what we would do is we would grab a for loop, say forever, animate the background text, loop on. So let's see how that would look like if I got that right. Yeah, so this wouldn't necessarily animate. I think it animates. You should be able to see it there. This doesn't animate, but it does allow you to create something that I think you would walk over. So if we change this over something that is not a wall, background text on top of random, let's say that bit of the world. Yeah, so you can walk in front of it, apparently, if you do that. This also ties into Bogdan's question of, is there a way to control the order of rendering like layers, to have the player overlap the bush, but not a tree, for example? That's a really good question. I think I just did that, but you would need to have a look into the MakeCode Arcade documentation, which can be found here. So with this, you can also search. It's all based on GitHub, as far as I know. So if we search for render, art and images, make game loop. So this actually goes a little bit into the technical bits of it. But there should be a way of changing the render order or at least of being aware of the render order. Craig asks, can you go to an object sprite and then transport it to another sprite? Transport as in move its location? Is that what you mean, Craig? Yes, you can. So we do this actually twice. The first one is here when we move Dora to stay slightly on top of the rocks. So after you've set the sprite and you've placed it, what you do is you use this block that says change sprite X and Y by whatever value. So what I did was that I moved Dora upwards a little bit. The way that the coordinate system works in MakeCode Arcade is that the top left corner is 0, 0, and then this horizontal axis is X, and it goes from 0 to infinite, and then the downwards axis, the vertical axis downwards, is the Y axis, and it goes from 0 in the top left corner to infinite. So if you want to move something to the right, you move its X by a positive value. If you want to move something to the left, you change its X by a negative value. And then if you want to move something downwards, Y by positive value, upwards, Y by negative value. Another thing that you can do, also going into that, is that you can change the sprite that is assigned to a certain object. So what we do to Dora is, after you answer her question, we change its image by using this block, set Dora image to have her face downwards, because we just thought it would be weird for her to still face upwards even though she let you pass her. And then we change her Y by -32, because everything in the game at the moment, you can change this, but everything in the game is created on a 16 by 16 pixel grid. Then I wanted to move her up by two grid tiles, so I moved her by -32. Hope this answers your question. And also another thing that I did was I added animations. so that when you press up, left, right, and down, you actually change the character. But this was just polish. It's literally the last thing that we do in the tutorial, in the kit itself. This is just something that you can easily copy paste into your own game. So going back to the questions, is there any sort of NPC AI, however basic? Like if I wanted to make Mario, can I make Goombas move around on their own easily, or do I need to move them tile by tile? No, you can get them to move on their own by using velocity. So set a sprite's velocity to on the X and Y scale to whatever, and then you can change that velocity. So that would make them move from left to right. And by keeping track of where they were or how much they moved, you can easily create like a Mario clone. There's actually something similar to that that creates a full-on platformer that looks way better than what I did on the YouTube channel for MakeCode Arcade. Right, that wasn't what I was looking at. Yeah. Yeah, so you should be able to. You just need to play around with the velocities. Let me see if I can demonstrate that quickly for you. If we do set Derek's velocity after we've placed him, no, here to -8, 0, you should be able to see him move. There you go. 6 feet. Okay, and then the last question that we have for the moment, if you have any other questions, just pop them in the chat or in the Q&A. Bogdan asks, regarding the game jam, scoring games based on story alone makes sense, but using MakeCode Arcade means more time is put into other aspects of the game, graphics mainly. In what way is that accounted for? We'll definitely account if you make your own graphics, or if you, like with MakeCode Arcade specifically, we can easily have a look and see just how complex the code is. But at the end of the day, you need to tell a good story. Of course, if you make if you make your own graphics, if everything looks cohesive, that's going to add, but it's not going to be a necessity. Like, we're more interested in you using what's available to you in a very efficient way than we are, say, for example, in you making something that looks pretty. No, I don't mean the text necessarily. So a narrative adventure is going to include a multitude of factors. If you use Twine or Ink, yeah, that's all fine, right? We completely understand that it's all going to be text, or mostly text in Twine's case. But if you use MakeCode Arcade, yeah, we would expect you to code in some basic interactions that add to the narrative. So what I think needs to be said is that when we're saying make a narrative game, we're also looking at how you use the interactions for narrative purposes. One really good example of this is if you have a look at Fallout, I want to say 3 or 4, where at some point you get to press a button or choose a dialogue choice, and you trigger a nuclear weapon above a city and you actually see it explode, right? That's a narrative interaction that was made really well because it got to shock you, and it allowed you to um actually feel like your choices have made an impact. It is a game jam. So that's what I was that's what I was talking about. Looking at the chat, you said, so it is a game jam after all, not just about branching storylines. Now it makes a whole new kind of sense. The branching storylines are a part of it, and if you use a game like Ink, if you use an engine like Ink or an engine like Twine or Charisma, they are going to be the main part of the story. Here, I would see them. Here, you can, with something like MakeCode Arcade, you can do more. You don't have to do more. Don't get me wrong, but you can do more if you want to. Any other questions? If not, what I'll do is I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to send you the post-event survey that I'm going to ask everybody to fill in. So please, please, please fill that in. Let me just make sure it's the right one. Yeah, and then I'm going to send you the link to the Discord so that you can join us. Right. If you're viewing this in retrospect, like on VOD on YouTube, and the link no longer works to join the Discord, just reach out to us on Twitter at Game Anglia, and we're gonna send you another invite so you can join the Discord. I'm going to stop recording now. Hope this was useful.